Before this video starts, I'd just like to plug my Patreon. For as little as $2 a month, you get early ad-free access to all videos, and higher tiers get their name on the screen and a shout-out at the end of each video. Videos will also be mostly uncensored on there too, so if that interests you, click the link in the description or the pinned comment. I've made a lot of videos about some evil YouTubers over the years. Maybe even too many, but there's another video platform I've never talked about on this channel. TikTok. It's a video site where people mostly upload brain rot that people somehow find entertaining, but it makes a shitload of money, hence why YouTube has been copying it and even pushes shorts more than regular videos these days. Are there TikTokers who have committed crimes? Of course. The vast majority will just be pretty minor stuff, but there's a small number of them who have committed some very serious crimes. And of course, that's what this video is about. In fact, we'll be covering 6 of them as we look at this dark side of TikTok. Chosen Terrell Hanna was 22 years old and living in Redford Township, Michigan when the FBI showed up at his door. On TikTok, he went by Chosen World and had built up a following of nearly 150,000 people who watched him dance, lip sync, and generally do the kind of content that gets you noticed on that platform. He wore colourful outfits to go with his dyed pink hair. He had a combined total of 1.6 million likes on all of his videos. By most metrics, things seemed to be going reasonably well for him. What nobody watching those videos knew was that he had spent the previous 3 months robbing stores at gunpoint across Metro Detroit. The spree started on December 1st, 2021 at the 7-Eleven in Commerce Township. The man who walked in was wearing all black. Black pants, a black hoodie, a black ski mask, and a black backpack with pink flowers on it. He had a gun and he used it to rob the place. Over the following weeks, he came back to the same 7-Eleven and hit it again. He also went after a Marathon gas station in Dearborn and a tobacco shop in Novi. 4 robberies in roughly 3 months, all carried out the same way. Dearborn police had been working the case, but didn't have a clear lead until an anonymous tip came in, pointing them toward a Snapchat account called Chosen One. When investigators dug into it, they found the account being renamed to Chosen World, and that there was a corresponding TikTok page with the same handle. They started watching the videos. What they were looking for was a match to the physical description witnesses had given. One detail that had come up in the final robbery was that witnesses said they could see pink hair underneath the suspect's mask. That detail was useful, but the thing that really moved the investigators forward was a pair of shoes. In a TikTok video posted in 2020, Terrell Hanna was dancing while wearing white Nike sneakers with red accents. Investigators compared those shoes to the ones worn during the robberies, and the FBI task force officer noted in the criminal complaint that they were similar in appearance. That was enough to get a warrant for his phone's location data. The phone placed him in the geographic area of each robbery at roughly the times they occurred. Investigators also traced his phone to a nearby Pet Supplies Plus during their surveillance period in early February 2022. On February 9th, they started physically surveilling him outside his home. Then on February 23rd, they moved in. When agents raided his house, they found the black backpack with the floral pattern, the full-body skeleton suit he'd been wearing as a disguise, the white Nikes, and a black Glock handgun. When they sat him down and talked to him, he didn't hold much back. He admitted to all 4 robberies and confirmed that the floral backpack had been with him for each one. He was charged with robbery affecting interstate commerce and possessing a firearm during a violent crime, both federal charges. He was held without bond. The TikTok account, which had been very active throughout the entire period he was committing these crimes, was eventually taken down. In September 2022, Terrell Hanna pleaded guilty. The plea agreement required him to serve a minimum of 7 years in federal prison, with that time running consecutive to any other sentence. Each of the 4 robbery counts carried a maximum of 20 years on its own. His sentencing was scheduled for January 10th, 2023. The detail that got a lot of attention in the press coverage was the shoes, and it's a reasonable thing to focus on, because there's something almost hard to believe about it. He wore the same distinctive shoes in his public videos that he wore while robbing stores. The same pink hair that he'd been displaying to his 150,000 followers was visible under his mask during the last robbery. He was essentially posting documentation of himself on the same platform his victims could see. Whether that reflects arrogance, carelessness, or just a fundamental miscalculation is hard to say, but the FBI task force officer's official description of the case included the phrase, quote, dancing in what investigators described as his stick-up shoes, which is probably not how anyone wants to be written into a federal criminal complaint. Elias Fritz had a pretty good thing going. The 19-year-old from Nassau in the Bahamas had built up over 300,000 TikTok followers by doing something simple, being charming on camera while bartending at a beachside spot called Tiki Bikini Hut. His videos went viral, the kind of growth that most people trying to make it on TikTok spend years chasing. Tourists who passed through Nassau recognized him. He landed a modeling deal at a fashion brand called Bahari Bahamas. By late 2024, he was one of the more recognizable young faces on the island, and his account had racked up over 1 million likes. People knew him as Jado World, and he had a following, brand partnerships, and what looked like a career that was only going to keep growing. And then, August 11th, 2025 happened. At around 4:30 in the morning, officers with Operation Black Scorpion, a Bahamian police unit focused on illegal firearms and drug crimes, noticed a white Nissan Cube leering down Robinson Road near Eder Street with no headlights on. When they tried to pull the car over, instead of stopping, the occupants opened fire on them. Officers in the pursuing unit returned fire. What followed was a high-speed chase through Nassau that ended when the car crashed hard into a utility pole on Eastern Road. There were 3 people in the car, 2 19-year-olds and a 17-year-old. One of those 19-year-olds was Elias Fritz. While the chase was still happening, a separate police unit on Robinson Road came across a taxi driver flagging them down from East Street. His name was Theodore Ferneder, and he had gunshot wounds. According to police, Ferneder had been driving his 2014 Honda Odyssey when the occupants of a white Nissan Cube, matching the description of Fritz's vehicle, tried to rob him and shot him in the process. He was taken to hospital for treatment. A high-powered weapon, described by police as an assault rifle, was recovered from the crashed car. Fritz and his fellow 19-year-old co-accused were charged with the attempted murder of Theodore Ferneder, attempted armed robbery, the attempted murder of 2 police officers, possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, and possession of ammunition. When they appeared before a senior magistrate, neither was asked to enter a plea. Both were denied bail and remanded to prison. Conviction on any one of those charges carried serious consequences under Bahamian law. Attempted murder alone can result in life imprisonment. One additional condition was placed on Fritz specifically when bail was eventually considered. He was banned from discussing the pending case on social media. That detail is worth sitting with for a second, given that social media was the entire reason why anyone outside Nassau knew his name. His bail hearing stretched out for months. He remained in custody through September, October, and into November, while his legal team worked through repeated delays in the application process. His case was listed for a voluntary bill of indictment on November 21st. The bail decision kept getting pushed back, first on November 12th, then further still. Eventually, in December 2025, the judge granted bail set at $50,000. The conditions were strict: an electronic monitoring bracelet, a nightly residential curfew, and daily check-ins at his local police station. He could only walk out once the paperwork was formally signed off. So there was a real possibility he spent Christmas 2025 waiting to sign a document. His fans had a hard time processing all of it. His TikTok comments filled up with people insisting there had to be some mistake. This was the guy who made bartending look fun, who smiled at the camera and made Nassau look like the best place on earth. People who had followed him for months were genuinely stunned. His account was still up while he sat in a Bahamian prison, still showing the drink videos and the modeling shots, a completely intact public image just sitting there, while the person behind it faced a list of charges that could put him away for the rest of his life. That disconnect is probably the most striking part of this whole story. Fritz's TikTok presence was genuinely likable. He never did anything controversial or posted any problematic content, and had no pattern of behavior that his audience could look back on and point to. He just seemed like a young man from the Bahamas having a good run. And then in August, he was allegedly behind the wheel of a car with no headlights on, with an assault rifle inside it, whose occupant shot a taxi driver trying to steal his van and then opened fire on the officers who gave chase. As of this video, his case is still ongoing. No trial date has been confirmed publicly as of now. The charges have not been proven in court, and Fritz has not entered a plea, but the facts on the record, the police report, the named officers, the recovered weapon, the injured taxi driver, the charges filed and upheld through multiple court appearances, those are documented. Whatever the court ultimately decides, the night of August 11th is not in dispute. Justin Joshua Guzman went by Guzman himself on TikTok. He was 22 years old, based out of Houston, Texas, and had built up around 130,000 followers on his main account before he was banned, something that had happened to him more than once. He'd migrate to a backup, rebuild, and then get banned again. His content was mostly lip-syncing and comedy skits. He wore tracksuits, made faces to the camera, and posted captions like, quote, "Ain't it crazy that we're the faces of Texas? Like basically whatever we say goes around here." Another one read, "Don't be in public with your girl, because she'll leave you for us. We're superstars." That was the kind of persona he was building. Not particularly original, and it was honestly very cringe, but it got traction.
Wait! Is that Guzman? Ah! Oye, pero qué lo que está haciendo? Tú sabes, baby, say! Yo, chill out, bro, stop. Say! Say! Man, chill out, bro. Chill out. Say! Gangsta, man! Brrr. Oh, shit. Say! Stop yelling in the store, bro. Chill. Bye, bro. Chill. Gangsta, man. Grrr. What? Is that Guzman? Oye, pero ¿qué es lo que está haciendo? Tú sabes, man. Stop yelling in the fucking store, bro. Stop. Say! Stop yelling in the store. Say! Chill out. Yo,
Say!
Bro, I'm trying to.
Say! Hey, watch out, bro.
Say!
Bro. Go shop. Go shop.
Say!
Bro, stop yelling in the store.
Say!
Go shop, bro. Go shop, bro. Go shop.
For TikTok or something.
Wait, is that Guzman?
And traction was the whole point. On June 3rd, 2025, Guzman and his friend, Marco Sinan, were at the Galleria Mall in Houston, filming content for TikTok, Twitch, and Kick. They had a driver with them who handled the behind-the-scenes logistics. At some point, a woman got into an elevator. Guzman and Sinan were already in it. One of them asked her something and she ignored it. That's when one of the men reportedly called her a stupid, ugly bitch and got off. She waited until they cleared out before exiting on a different floor, then found her fiancé, Anthony Sanders, who had come to pick her up from work. Sanders was 30 years old and a Marine veteran. His 10-month-old son was in the car. Sanders drove around the parking garage and located the group. There was a verbal argument, and then he drove away. According to investigators, as Sanders was driving to leave, Guzman's car pulled up in front of his and brake-checked him. Both cars stopped. Sanders got out. Guzman allegedly tapped his bag and said, quote, "You don't want to mess with me." Then he and Sinan pulled out guns and opened fire. Investigators found 14 spent casings inside the vehicle. Sanders was shot 10 times. His fiancée and their infant son were not physically hurt. Sanders was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead. Guzman and Sinan sped off in a black Chrysler 300. Police pulled them over within a block of the Galleria. When Guzman stepped out of the car, 2 spent shell casings fell off his lap onto the ground. Police questioned both men and then released them. That last part drew significant public criticism in the weeks that followed, with many people asking how 2 men connected to a fatal shooting had been allowed to walk away that same night. Weeks passed. Then Sanders' mother, who had been on a live phone call with her son when he was killed, came across a TikTok video. It was Guzman dancing. Playing in the background were news clips about Anthony Sanders' death. The video was set to rap music. She passed it along to investigators. On June 30th, nearly 4 weeks after the shooting, Guzman turned himself in at the Harris County Joint Processing Center. Marco Sinan had already been arrested days earlier. Both were charged with murder. Guzman's bond was initially set at $750,000, then reduced to $450,000, and his attorneys pushed for it to go lower still, eventually landing at $300,000, which Guzman posted and walked out. Sinan remained in jail on a $1 million bond, partly due to a poor criminal record. Guzman's defense attorney argued self-defense from the beginning. Guzman claimed that Sanders had a gun in his waistband and had pulled it out before Guzman fired. He also claimed Sanders had a knife. Investigators found no firearms and no knives on Sanders, in his vehicle, or anywhere in the surrounding area of the parking garage. There were officers working extra duty near the scene that day. Guzman told investigators he did not think to flag any of them down after the shooting. Sanders' parents, both Army veterans, spoke publicly about their son. His mother said Anthony died protecting his fiancée and his child. His father said the family was there for justice and to bring awareness to what had been happening on the streets of Houston. After Guzman's arrest became public, a segment of his fan base rallied around him online, posting, quote, "Free Guzman," and repeating the self-defense claim. The pushback was just as loud. One comment that circulated widely read, quote, "It's not normal for you people to be riling people out on the streets with your screaming, bullying, and borderline harassing the public for your content. Of course there was bound to be somebody who got pissed off enough to clap back. And now they want to claim self-defense?" Guzman and Sinan are both facing murder charges. No trial date has been set as of this video. Anthony Sanders' mother said she was on the phone with her son when he was shot. His father said his son was a protector, and his son was only 10 months old when he watched it happen from a seat in the back of his father's car. Terry and Thomas had built a very large following on TikTok. Going by Mr. Prada, he had accumulated around 8 million followers across 2 accounts, with over 550 million likes on all of his videos. He was 20 years old, from Louisiana, and by social media metrics alone, he was doing very well. Then, in late September 2024, a body turned up on the side of a highway. A passerby spotted a suspicious blue tarp on the side of US Highway 51 in Tangibahoa Parish on the morning of Sunday, September 29th. Inside was 69-year-old William Nicholas Abraham, a well-known Baton Rouge therapist and former Catholic priest who had appeared on cable television and spent 30 years in mental health counseling. He was wrapped in a comforter, bound with duct tape, and covered in a tarp. He had died from blunt force trauma to the head, neck, and shoulders. The local sheriff described it as a very physical and very violent death. Investigators moved quickly. Surveillance footage showed Abraham arriving at Thomas's apartment in Baton Rouge around 11 a.m., the day before his body was discovered. He was not seen alive again. Witnesses at the complex said they saw Thomas struggling to drag something wrapped in a tarp down the stairs and load it into Abraham's car that evening. The next morning, that same car was picked up by a license plate reader in a nearby area. When Baton Rouge police attempted to stop the vehicle, the driver backed into a police car and fled. Thomas was identified as a person of interest. By the following day, he had left Louisiana entirely. U.S. Marshals received a tip that Thomas was in Dallas, and members of the North Texas Fugitive Task Force found him sitting on a bench downtown. He was taken into custody without incident. Back in Baton Rouge, detectives executing a search warrant at Thomas's apartment found a significant amount of blood and multiple sharp objects and other weapons throughout the residence. The Louisiana State Police Crime Lab confirmed the blood matched Abraham's DNA. There was evidence indicating a violent physical altercation had taken place. An investigator said Thomas had attempted to clean up after the killing, though significant amounts of blood remained. Thomas was initially charged with second-degree murder, but that was upgraded after extradition. Under Louisiana law, killing someone over the age of 65 is an automatic first-degree murder charge, and Abraham was 69. First-degree murder carries either life without parole or the death penalty. Prosecutors have not indicated that they plan to seek execution, meaning Thomas faces a mandatory life sentence if convicted. Investigators said there was no evidence Thomas was ever a patient of Abraham's, and the nature of their relationship has not been publicly confirmed. How they knew each other and why Abraham went to that apartment are questions that still haven't been answered publicly as of the time this video was made. What added a strange layer to the whole story was that, in the weeks before the murder, some of Thomas's followers had noticed something was off. Videos showed him declaring his name was no longer Prada, and in one clip, he was seen practicing his mugshot. Whether that was dark humor, something more deliberate, or a sign that something was already unraveling is hard to say. People noticed it after the fact, the way you do when something terrible happens, and you go back looking for signs you missed. After Thomas was brought back to Louisiana and the case moved forward, a judge ordered a sanity commission, appointing 2 doctors to evaluate whether Thomas is mentally competent to stand trial. A sanity hearing was scheduled for January 2026. As of now, no trial date has been set. Dr. Nick Abraham spent 3 decades working in mental health. He specialized in treating substance abuse, depression, and anxiety, and was known in the Baton Rouge community. A former attorney who knew him described him as tender and gentle, and said he was completely shocked by the circumstances of his death. Thomas remains in East Baton Rouge Parish Prison, without bond, waiting on a case that could define the rest of his life. His TikTok account and videos are still out there if you look for them. But none of that changes what happened in that apartment on September 28, 2024, or what was found on the side of a Louisiana highway the next morning. Mehek Bukhari was a British Pakistani lifestyle influencer from Stoke-on-Trent who built her following on TikTok and Instagram under the name Maybe. Her content covered fashion, beauty, and family life, and she became particularly known for her videos featuring her mother, Anne Sreen, who appeared alongside her regularly. The two of them seem close in the way that plays well online. That image of a tight-knit mother and daughter team became very relevant later on, though not in a way either of them would have wanted. The background to what happened starts not with Mehek, but with Anne Sreen. Mehek's mother had been in a relationship with a 21-year-old man named Saqib Hussain for around 3 years. Anne Sreen was married throughout this. When she tried to end the affair, Saqib didn't take it well. He had explicit material from the relationship and threatened to send it to Anne Sreen's husband unless she paid him £3,000, money he claimed to have spent on her during their time together. Anne Sreen told Mehek about the blackmail. According to messages recovered by police, Mehek's response was not to go to the police or a solicitor. She told her mother she would get Saqib jumped by men who would make sure he wouldn't know what day it was. That message became a significant piece of evidence at trial and gave a fairly clear indication of how seriously Mehek was taking the situation and what kind of solution she had in mind. What followed was a plan to lure Saqib to a meeting under pretense of handing over the £3,000 he was demanding. Saqib was told to come to a Tesco car park in Hamilton, Leicester on the night of February 10, 2022. He brought his friend Mohammed Hashim Ijuzuddin with him. The money was never there. When the meeting fell apart, Saqib and Hashim got back in the car and tried to leave. That is when the chase started. Two vehicles pursued their Skoda along the A46. Mehek was in one of the cars. The chase reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour. In a 999 call made during the pursuit, Saqib can be heard telling the operator the cars are trying to ram him off the road and that he thinks he is going to die. The call disconnected at 1:33 in the morning. The Skoda was forced into the central reservation, split in two on impact, and caught fire. Saqib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijuzuddin were both killed. Hashim had nothing to do with the affair or the blackmail. He was 21 years old and was in the car with his friend because he just decided to come along. After the crash, the cars drove on. None of the occupants stopped. According to the senior investigation officer, they drove back past the burning wreckage and still didn't stop. Mehek and Ansreen were arrested at their home address within hours. Body camera footage captured the moment officers arrived at their house. When police asked where they had been that evening, Mehek told them they'd been in Nottingham. There was a first trial that resulted in a hung jury, which meant the case had to be retried. The retrial concluded in August 2023 at Leicester Crown Court. The jury found Mehek and Ansreen guilty of 2 counts of murder each. 2 of the men, Raish Jamal and Rikan Karwan, were also convicted of murder. 3 further defendants, including a woman named Natasha Akhtar, were convicted of manslaughter rather than murder. The distinction mattered legally, though in practical terms the outcome for everyone involved was prison. Mehek was sentenced to life with a minimum of 31 years and 8 months. The sentencing judge described the case as cold-blooded murder and described Mehek as self-obsessed with an exaggerated sense of entitlement. He noted that TikTok and Instagram were at the heart of the case, and that protecting both her and her mother's image on those platforms had contributed directly to the decisions that ended 2 lives. Ansreen received a minimum of 26 years and 9 months. Mehek appealed her sentence, and in October 2025, the Court of Appeal reduced her minimum term to just under 27 years, on the basis that the original sentence had not been given enough weight to her age and relative maturity at the time. She was 22 years old when the murders took place. The appeal judges were clear that the reduction did not reflect any doubts about her guilt or the seriousness of what she had done, only that the sentencing guidelines around young offenders had not been applied correctly the first time around. She and her mother became the first mother and daughter in British legal history to be convicted of a double murder. After sentencing, Mehek cried in the dock and blew a kiss to her father in the public gallery. During her police interview, investigators noticed that the only visible sign of distress that she showed was when the 999 call recording was played back to her, the one in which Saqib tells the operator he thinks he is about to die. The case became the subject of an ITV documentary series called TikTok, Murder Gone Viral, which drew large viewing figures. Mehek's account is still up, though obviously no longer active. With her reduced minimum term, she will be in her late 40s before she's eligible to be considered for parole, assuming that consideration ever leads anywhere. Ali Abdullaban was a TikTok creator who went by the name Jin Kid. He was well known for doing impressions, specifically a very accurate one of Tony Montana from Scarface that got a lot of traction online.
Who the fuck is that?
Tony, yo, I'ma keep it all the way a buck with you, for me? You be sounding old as fuck.
Fuck you, man. When you gonna pay me rent?
As soon as you pay your taxes?
You are so negative, man. You know that? Why you always gotta break my balls?
Shut the fuck up, please, everybody. Oh my god.
Ay, coño! Dear God.
Is that a gun?
Padre nuestros que estás en cielo.
Oh, now you want to pray. Can I borrow this, please? You guys summoned me.
Well, technically, Tony did. You're a fucking snitch.
Hey, Antonio, you ever tell your buddies about that time you killed your best friend because he was sleeping with your sister?
Hey, fuck you, man!
Yo, you got a sister?
Shut the fuck up! Why don't you take a break, okay? Play a few games with us. You and me, we start over. How'd you like that?
Yeah, alright. Yeah, I can do that. Play some games. You guys got Fortnite?
Get the fuck out of my house.
At his peak, he had around 1.4 million followers and was considered one of the more talented impression creators on the platform. Thanks to his charisma, people liked his content, and he was starting to get noticed beyond just TikTok. That career is now over though, and the reason why is about as serious as it gets. Ali and his wife, Anna Abdullaban, had been having significant problems in their marriage. By late 2021, they were separated, and Anna had moved into an apartment in San Diego with their young daughter. Ali was not taking the separation well by any account. He was controlling during the marriage, and that behavior didn't stop when they split up. He remained fixated on Anna and deeply suspicious that she was seeing someone else. On October 21st, 2021, Ali used their daughter as a way to get access to Anna's apartment. He dropped the child off and, while he was there, secretly installed a listening app on Anna's phone without her knowledge. He then left and sat in his car listening to what was being picked up through the microphone. What he heard was Anna talking with a man named Rayburn Barron, who was a friend of hers. From what Ali could make out, the two of them were together in the apartment. Ali went back upstairs. He knocked on the door, and when Anna opened it, he pushed his way inside. He then shot and killed Anna and Rayburn. Their daughter was in the same apartment at the time. She was not physically harmed, but she was present. Ali left the building, called his father to tell him what he had done, and was arrested a short time later without incident. The case went to trial in 2023. Ali's defense did not dispute that he had pulled the trigger. The argument they made was that he should be convicted of voluntary manslaughter rather than murder, on the basis that he had acted in the heat of passion after discovering his wife with another man. California law does allow for that distinction in certain circumstances, and it would have resulted in a significantly shorter sentence. The prosecution pushed back hard on that framing, pointing out the level of premeditation involved. He had installed spyware on her phone. He had driven back to the apartment deliberately. This was not a spontaneous reaction. The jury sided with the prosecution. Ali was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge also noted the aggravated factor that the couple's daughter had been present during the killings. What came out during the trial filled in a picture of a marriage that had been difficult for some time. Anna's friends and family described Ali as controlling and jealous throughout the relationship. There was testimony about his behavior becoming more erratic as his frustration with the separation grew. He had apparently been struggling financially as well, which added to the pressure he was putting on Anna to reconcile. Anna's father gave a victim impact statement that was reported widely. He described losing his daughter and having to consider the life that his granddaughter now faces, growing up without her mother and the knowledge of how she died. Rayburn Barron's family similarly spoke about the loss of someone who had simply been in the wrong place. The TikTok angle got a fair amount of media attention, partly because Ali had been active on the platform right up until the murders. There is footage of him doing his Tony Montana impression, joking around and doing the kind of content that had got him his following, and then days later, he killed 2 people. His account was eventually removed, though it took some time and required public pressure before that happened. There was also the detail about the impression itself. The Tony Montana character is violent, speaks about killing casually, and is not exactly a subtle piece of foreshadowing in retrospect. People online made that connection quickly, though it is sometimes not worth looking too much into someone's content choices as predictors of behavior. What is harder to argue with is the spyware. Installing a listening app on someone's phone without their consent is not a crime of passion. It requires a phone, an app, a deliberate action, and a decision to sit in a car and monitor what your estranged wife is doing. By the time Ali walked back into the apartment, he had already made a series of decisions. The jury clearly took that view. Ali Abdulaban is currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences, and he will die in prison. His daughter is growing up without her mother and without the future they may have had, and with a father who took that from her. And that's the end of the video, folks. I'd like to thank all of my patrons for their continued support, especially those whose names you're seeing on screen now, particularly Sonny Hauser, Charlie Boyle, Bailey Cosmic Black Metal 96, Mimi, Pizza Guy 111, Light into Sunlight, KJ Musical, Losanna, Brandon Field, Helen Korn, Kyle, BAN, Brendan O'Connell, Adam Clayton, Count Ligula, Danny Jade, Paul Mendoza, Alex Christmas, Bella Schwartz, Belle Siegel, Stimulate, Inquisitor Zarius, and Dick the Cock Johnson and the Woodmaster of WrestleMania 69 or Maybe Not Dude. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.